Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cynthia the Audio Belle. I just got back from Axpona 2023 in Chicago, and I've got a lot of exciting footage to share with you guys from my trip. Are you filming me? Okay. This is my 5th audio show, and I've made this interesting journey from being a hobbyist to becoming a reviewer over the course of 5 years of being an audiophile. From my very first video at a Magnepan 30.7 listening event, to being featured a few times on the Audiophiliac's channel, from there starting my own channel. And now, I have just agreed to being a freelance reviewer for The Absolute Sound. For those of you who are not familiar with The Absolute Sound, they are a magazine that specializes in audio gear reviews. They also have their own website with articles and YouTube channel with video gear reviews. And their sister magazine, HiFi Plus, does the same thing. They have a magazine, a website, and a YouTube channel. So I urge you to go check those out. And stay tuned for these equipment reviews, because they're going to be aired on YouTube channels for both magazines of the same parent company. And equipment that will not go through these channels that I'm still interested in reviewing, I will air on my own channel, and you might see the review on both my channel and one of theirs, depending. I last went to an Axpona in 2019. I didn't go to the one that took place last year, as I went to the Texas Audio Roundup instead. And I have to say, Axpona is a lot different than what I remembered it to be. Now, I could be confusing it with my trips to Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, but here is what I saw. There were a lot of dealers and distributors with a conglomerate of different manufacturer components in each room, and only a handful or two of people that worked for the manufacturers were actually present at the show. There were a lot of people squeezing in and out of rooms. Some people in charge of rooms would talk while you were trying to listen, but there were others that took notice to newcomers in the room that would want to listen to something. Being a member of the press is interesting because you meld the line between work and pleasure, and with 16 floors to cover, you have a very limited amount of time to get to hear everything you want to or need to. The most challenging part of that is that you want to be respectful and listen to a sales pitch, but you just don't always have time for that. And then you want to hang out with friends and have balance to make time for relationships. Being a content creator in that sense is difficult, but can be very rewarding, and it has been rewarding for me. So without further ado, I'd love to present you guys with my show coverage. I decided to do things a little differently this year. Friday was the first day of the show. Before Jeremy and I got married, I was lugging around camera equipment at shows by myself. Now, Jeremy is my cameraman. We decided to use the first day of the show to make our battle plans on what we needed to tackle. Then on Saturday, we started filming. We decided to start with possibly the wackiest, coolest, and yet the most impractical speakers we'd ever seen. All right, we're going to go see some speakers that have plasma tweeters. I don't know how that's going to work, but I guess we're going to find out. These were Plasmatronics speakers designed by Dr. Alan Hill, who used to work as a scientist for the United States Air Force Research Laboratory. I wouldn't recommend these for conventional listening, one reason being the system requires a huge helium tank that must be refilled every 300 hours of listening. Not quite the same as refilling your propane tank. The funny thing was, there was an older gentleman, and I think his wife, that asked where these speakers were so they could hear them. I directed he and the lady to the room where they were, not knowing that I was talking to Dr. Hill himself. After leaving the Plasmatronics room, I headed to see some friends we had made the previous day in the Atome and Atoll room. On Friday, we had heard the Atome GT1 HD bookshelf speakers making beautiful sounds that were radiating down the hotel's hallway from out of the Atome room. They let me DJ my own tracks, and not only were the speakers stunning to look at, but they sounded gorgeous too. I graduated from their bookshelves to their mid-tier tower speakers, the GT2s, but for a whopping $7,500 for the towers versus $4,500 for the bookshelves, my opinion was that the bookshelves were a better bang for the buck. although they were still outside of my own price range. I loved the beautiful piano finish on the towers, though. So I had asked my YouTube subscribers in a community post what they wanted to see at the show, and Curious Traveler 1390 asked to see the PS Audio Room and the Odyssey Room. My good friend and viewer David Sinna had also asked to see the new PS Audio speakers, the Aspens, so the first thing I did at the show was say hello to Paul and check out the Aspen FR20s. Now, as far as the speakers go, they sounded great, but people were packing into the PS Audio Room like sardines. But just to be transparent, it was kind of like throwing a piece of cheese out for a bunch of mice. And, well, you can imagine the rest. Now, the Odyssey Room was a completely different story. I have a viewer named Curious Traveler 1390 that asked to go and see the Odyssey audio amplifiers. And he couldn't be at the show, so I'm going to go see them and film them for him on his behalf. As soon as we walked in, it was dark with candlelight, incense, and Pink Floyd. I couldn't tell if I had just walked into the 60s, a religious experience, or both. We lost our initial footage of this and went back to recapture what the room looked like for everyone out there. I got to talk to Klaus, Mr. Odyssey himself. This is by far my favorite room at the show, if not just for the ambience alone. He was showing the Odyssey Stratos monoblocks and I believe his Lorelei speakers, both of which packed a full-bodied, powerful experience. In talking to Klaus, we also got to meet Craig Buckles from Magnepan Cables, who wired the Odyssey room, which posed the age-old snake oil question on whether expensive cables really did anything different. Jeremy and I asked Craig this very question, and he explained in a very logical way the different nuances of microscopic issues that could play into things. One being the low versus high frequencies not doing so well in the same pipe, so to speak, and ways of solving that problem. He explained to us the skin effect and time smear and issues with lows and highs not arriving at the same time. And he told us that he puts helium in his cables. I immediately started imagining trying to cable up my audio system only to find my cables floating away from me. Joking aside, Craig taught us a lot that we had no idea about. As for our full-time job, we work on servers in the computer industry, and RJ45 twisted pair theology is apparently quite different from audio cable challenges. It was then that I learned that snake oil really was the same thing as diminishing returns, and not so much a sleazy car salesman thing, although it could be marketed that way depending on who you're talking to. I'm really hoping that Craig offers reviews so that I can test the different theories in expensive speaker wiring to see how much of a difference it really makes. If he doesn't, there's really no way I'll ever be able to afford them, unless I win the lottery, but I am curious if anyone out there watching this has Magnepan cables or Kimber cables, and how much of a difference they've made for you guys who have these cables. Let me know in the comments box. Our friend and local dealer Jeff Harris from Reference Analog was with Zesto Audio and YG Acoustics at the show. I was greeted by Carolyn, the industrial engineer behind the Zesto amplifiers, and a woman at that. Her husband George is an electrical engineer, and they are a husband and wife team, which I thought was really cool. She told me that she wanted to appeal to interior designers by giving the amplifiers a unique look, and she modeled that after a grand piano. And aren't they beautiful? When we started getting a dip in energy, we headed to have lunch with my good friend Troy of the Audio Asylum Planar chat forum. He made his famous debut in one of my previous videos that was featured on both my channel and the Audiophiliacs. Troy insisted that we had to hear the flagship Diptyque speakers on the 12th floor, so we followed him up there, and what we heard was Magnepan speakers, if they had bass. There, I met Michael Hotzen for the first time, one of the largest, if not the largest, Magnepan dealer in the country. And, of course, knowing what these speakers were capable of, he played for us the infamous Limit to Your Love by James Blake. I'm not at all joking when I tell you, though, that these planar speakers were producing subwoofer tones. Hotzen had us listen to a variety of random songs that gave these speakers a workout. Personally, I like them better than my Magnepan 3.7i's, so of course we started scheming to take Wendell from Magnepan to this room to listen to them, because he's constantly telling us that the only thing that sounds like a subwoofer is a subwoofer.
Wendell has to hear these. Okay.
He's like, he's avoiding me.
Okay.
And he has to hear me.
Is he avoiding the truth?
Yeah, but he's also just have way more bass in the back of him. Yeah. We have a dual voice coil on the driver, so it's way better power hit. Like,
If we can convince Wendell to come up here, can we ensure that there's an argument on camera that occurs?
yeah.
Okay. We filmed his reaction to these speakers in another video, so be on the lookout for that video as well. But of course, for the price point of $50,000 for a pair of planar speakers that are the size of Magnepan 3.7 eyes, and these were the Diptyque's flagship model, I still have yet to find a planar speaker company that makes speakers as affordable as Magnepan does, even with their recent increased prices. So after dragging myself out of the room of unattainable pipe dreams, we went next door to hear the Prolisten R5M monitors. But it was too crowded and I got up to get the heck out of Dodge. And at the moment I did so, Eric Smith from Fidelity Imports stopped me in my tracks, and I'm so glad that he did. He took me aside to ask if I would like to see all of the manufacturer products that Fidelity Imports had at the show, and he took into account that I was budgeting my time, so he helped me audio speed date each of Fidelity's rooms to decide if there was one or two I might want to privately demo. And that was the moment I met the two most hilarious British guys, Martin from Acoustic Energy Speaker Company and Nick from Cyrus Audio. And they told me something absolutely crazy. They aren't marketing to audiophiles, they're marketing to normal people. And hence, we played Can't Get You Out of My Head by Kylie, and we had a dance party. I got to hear the Acoustic Energy AE100 MK2 bookshelf speakers and AE520 tower speakers, which were $500 and $5,000, and probably one of the more affordable sets of speakers at the show. The bookshelves had a very large sound for some very small-sized speakers, and the towers had a bass slam effect that was jaw-dropping for such a small pair of floor-standing speakers.
What we're going to do now is we're going to do something which you don't normally do at hi-fi shows. We're going to go completely the wrong way around, and we're going to show you our cheapest products.
Okay, bring it on.
Yeah, all completely unplanned. We only did this for the first time earlier today because we thought it would be funny. And then we discovered how good they sounded, and now we don't think it's funny at all. No, don't worry. I mean, this is by no means an audiophile demonstration. This is really just a little bit of fun. But the idea of it is to show you that even with our entry-level bookshelf speakers, you have the same family sound, which is obviously something we're trying to give. We literally got these out of the box Thursday and put them on the shelf. And about 2 hours ago, we stuck them on the top of these speakers just for fun because somebody said, can we hear them? We went, oh, okay. And then we realized it wasn't funny at all because they worked so well. And we were like, no, really?
So which ones did you like better?
Well, of course, I like the biggest ones. But what I'm getting at is the fact that we're now going to do something that you should never do, which is go from your most expensive, best products to your lowest cost products.
We filmed some of the room on Saturday and some on Sunday because we had to leave the hotel due to technical difficulties running out of storage space and not being able to back up to the cloud. This meant a ton more walking as we left to our hotel and came back to the Renaissance Hotel for the show. As you can see, I was pretty tired with all the walking back and forth. But as we walked back in, we were reunited with Brian and David, friends we made at the Texas Audio Roundup the year before. I think Brian specializes in sourcing components and setting up audiophile systems for millionaires in Florida, or was it $1 million systems? I don't remember, but it was something along those lines, and he is super knowledgeable in all kinds of product gear. So I've really just appreciated his recommendations between last year and this year on products that he's recommended to me. So Brian and David are a fun pair, and it was great getting to catch up with them.
Just a brief interruption, esteemed viewers. As you may know, I'm Tom Martin, Chief Content Officer of The Absolute Sound. We have a new product. It's on the Substack platform, and we're going to do some interesting things with Substack. First of which is reader questions and answers. Each Monday, readers will submit questions. We'll pick the most interesting ones and we'll answer the questions on Friday. We'll also have early access to articles and special blogs that don't appear anywhere else. We hope you'll join us. It's only a cost of a cup of coffee per month. Just check on the screen or in the show notes below. Thanks, and now back to the show.
As I told you guys earlier, Jeremy and I had plans to prank Wendell from Magnepan by having him listen to the Diptyques. But it goes even deeper than that. Before we thought of that, we had actually intended to go to the SVS room to see if we could talk someone from SVS into having an argument with Wendell on camera about Wendell's statement that only a subwoofer sounds like a subwoofer. So we asked our friends Brian and David to come along with us to the SVS rooms, but they were so crowded, it was really impossible to get into either one of the SVS rooms at the show. Brian made an alternate recommendation and told us that the best subwoofers, bar none, are actually per listens. So Brian escorted us up to the per listen room, and I asked the guy in there to play the bassiest track he had. At my request, he did so, kind of begrudgingly, and made a statement that the bass was going to be really balanced. I said, "That's okay, play me the bassiest thing you've got." And he did. And boys and girls, these were the best subwoofers I had ever heard in my life. And what I learned was that they're actually THX Dominus certified, which is a really tough certification to get. And what they told us was these were their entry-level subwoofers, the R210S, at $3,000, though I found out later that they were actually $4,000. Brian told the designer of the subwoofers, Eric, that we had to talk to him. So we met Eric, who was super down-to-earth and really tall. We asked him kind of a funny question, whether he could argue with an 80-year-old man who says the only thing that sounds like a subwoofer is a subwoofer. And he was quite confused, and we went on to further explain the man we're talking about is Wendell from Magnepan, and that he is like my grandpa. And we just wanted to pull a prank on him and get him in the room to talk to Eric and hash this out once and for all. Eric agreed to help us with this, but he didn't so much want to be on camera for it. But this has to be one of the funniest pranks we've pulled on Wendell yet, and I'll talk about it more in another video. But to give you an idea on how it turned out, Wendell has promised to get me back for it. And as usual, Wendell had a secret room that was unlisted in the directory where he pulled off his normal shenanigans. This time it was showing Martin Logan's with the Magnepan concept dipole woofers, which was totally weird, and no one seemed to get why the heck Wendell would come to the show with Martin Logan speakers instead of Magnepan speakers. Needless to say, I never got to hear this wacky combination, although I am really curious on what it sounds like. The other Magnepan boys were in a different hotel room showing off the 3.7i's and LRS Plus speakers. Eric from Magnepan Sales told me I absolutely had to interview Mick from Services. I had no idea who Mick was, but he said that Mick was young and an audiophile. And there were all these Ask Mick buttons everywhere. I didn't get why all these buttons were saying, Ask Mick, so we went to the other Magnepan room to ask Mick. When I got up there, I saw this young man wearing a suit that had a vintage blue look to it, a ball cap, and sneakers. I didn't know what in the world to make of this, and I ended up asking him about the outfit in the interview, which will be uploaded to my channel soon. But just to give you guys a funny, I went up there and I introduced myself to Mick, and likewise he introduced himself to me, and I said, Mick, there are these Ask Mick buttons everywhere, so I came up here to ask you. And he said, okay, what did you want to ask me? And I said, well, I don't know, you tell me. The Ask Mick buttons say to ask you, so I came up here to do that. And he's like, okay, you can ask me about services, parts, warranty, etc., etc. And I said, all right, well, can I ask you a non-audio related question? And he said he would try to answer it. So, of course, I asked him the answer to life. Right off the bat, he said 42. On Sunday, I went to the Indow Audio room. Indow Audio speakers were designed and engineered by a young man named David Strunk. I first met him at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest 2019 when he was in his late 20s. He's a remarkable young man that I had plans on interviewing, but he wasn't feeling all that well during the show, so I intend to do the interview at a later date. His original speaker, before he came up with the Bravura 7 and 12, was the FS301. And the original speaker was not pretty. It looked like there was a brain sticking out of this speaker, but it didn't matter because the speaker sounded so good that it was one of the best speakers I had ever heard. Now, I wasn't quite as impressed with the Bravura 12 as I was with the original model I heard in 2019, And there are some clear reviews out there that there are issues with the Bravura 7's mids, but one of the reviews says it can be corrected with EQ. As you can see here, I'm talking with David's dad, Tim. I got married since I saw you last.
Hi, Jeremy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I love his family. His dad, his mom, and his sister have been involved to help him in his dream, and I have no idea what these newer models sound like outside of a hotel room. So I'm going to go more in depth on them with some ideas I had, hopefully get to drive to Tennessee to see how they're made perhaps. But I did learn from David's dad that he works like 80 hours a week on these speakers and is going to college at the same time. So I'm pretty sure he's stressed, and because I love his family so much and I know what David is capable of, I would like to work with him on this review and provide constructive feedback if needed, while also showing everyone what an astounding engineer David is. David's dad and I agreed that David could very well be the next Paul McGowan. I mean, he's only now in his early 30s, and, you know, if everything goes okay, then he might have 40 to 60 years of impact on the audiophile world. So knowing all this, guys, be on the lookout for future videos on my channel about David from Endow Audio and his speakers. Okay, so one of the last rooms we went to was Q Acoustics. Eric from Fidelity Imports told us the speaker we would audition in that room was brand new to market, and anything that is new, unique, and different is appealing to me. So we went back to our local audio show dealer, Eric. I know there's a lot of Erics in this story, but there were a lot of Erics at the show. But Eric took us to Q. Hi, Steve.
Hey, it's you.
You're on video too, you know.
I am? Should I smile?
Yes.
Hey, there you go.
The Audiophiliac also showed up to the party.
I'm smiling. Wait, Steve. Hello, people in...
As you can see, he's smiling. There were some issues finding Spanish Harlem by Rebecca Pigeon, which is what Steve and I wanted to hear. He had to roll as he was limited on time. As for myself, I was also limited on time, and I didn't get a chance to really put these through their paces, but here is what I can tell you. They can reproduce a tractor. Not that I've ever sat on a tractor or heard one in real life, but the song International Harvester by Craig Morgan will give you an idea. We tested this track on multiple speakers at the show, and so far Q was the one to pull off what we would expect to hear. Now, that is not enough data for me to say, hey, you should buy these speakers, but there are reviews out there on Q speakers, and the most interesting part of the whole thing was this guy's voice. Alex, one of the designers, had a really great voice, and I want you guys to hear it. So,
you good to go?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Alex Monroe, and I'm visiting Axpona from the UK, the headquarters of Q Acoustics. And the reason for me coming across here is that we've used the show to launch a brand new range of speakers called the 5000 series. Up until now, we've had some high-end offering called Concept, and we've had an entry-level offering called 3000i, and this neatly bridges the gap.
And the electronics were designed by a Japanese guy. He didn't speak much English, but he said something about these electronics having no negative feedback and no op amps. So I know the electronics had no op amps, but I wasn't sure what the no negative feedback part meant. If you guys know, let me know in the comments.
特徴はこれですこれ。Non negative feedback.
You don't speak Japanese.
Yeah,
I would have believed it.
sorry.
No, don't be.
Arigato.
Ah,
I can say that. All in all, even though the show wasn't what I remembered from so many years ago, I might have had stars in my eyes being younger and all. I just thought I was in audiophile heaven at the time. But it wasn't quite up to what I remembered it to be this time. However, what really made the show what it was the people. The relationships I established or built, and friends or people that I hadn't seen in so long that I got to see again. And I loved every bit of that. I even talked with a couple of other YouTubers at the show, Jordan from Haterade Cowboy Cinema, who covers home theater topics on his channel. We did a cross interview to talk about the show that you can likely see upcoming on both of our channels. And I met that home theater dude who I had never met before. and he asked if I wanted to collaborate, which I thought was really nice. And as it turned out, he and Jordan knew each other and they worked together. So we'll be doing a live stream on That Home Theater Dudes channel. Check it out. If this video is posted before the live stream, it will take place on Wednesday, April 19th at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. And if this video is posted after the live stream, you guys can still go check it out on his channel. I'd like to thank you guys as my viewers for watching, providing suggestions on things you wanted to see, and the support you provide so that I can go and capture the gear, the people, and these moments for you. If you like this video, I ask that you subscribe and ring the bell so you can get notifications so as not to miss out on the next video. I did not do as many interviews this time around. There are 2 to be exact, but there will be a few other videos regarding Axpona, so stay tuned.